Alright, so season 26 just came out, and are you confused as fuck? Me too. I made this to kind of help address that a little bit. I got my notes on the patch itself, as well as I've played a decent amount on the patch. The most important part about adapting to this patch, and basically any major change within League, is just understanding what they're going for and what vibes they're trying to portray. And this video is supposed to basically encapsulate that vibe. This patch is ridiculously long. This shit's a thesis, by the way. Like, it took me hours to get through this, and I have to read it again because there's so much going on here. Can you feel the effects of what's been happening? Yes. The first critical component is, of course, the role quests. And for any of the topics, if you need the specific numbers, you can just take a look at the patch notes, which I'll link, and then you can kind of look at specifics if you need to check back. As you know, Riot introduced quest system not just from jungle and support, and they added some for mid, top, and AD carry as well. And each of the roles have different metrics for what allows them to farm towards their quest. Each of the quests now unlock a new perk for all 5 roles. For top lane, that's the ability to have TP whether you take it as a summoner spell or not, and the ability to have a level 20 cap. For mid lane, that's access to tier 3 boots, and for AD carry, that's a 7th item slot. So that's some pretty crazy shit. Jungle basically got no love because they just made their quests a little bit easier and smites a little bit stronger, but they're definitely the bag holders of this change. Supports are also able to gain another slot for their control wards, which is a similar change but not as impactful. And what you need to understand is that the whole goal of each of these quests is to basically lock people into laning phase and not have it be so focused on playing the map. Over the last few years, especially last year, League has been very much about take fights, skirmish all over the map. Laners are often dragged to this by force, whether they want to or not. This change is going to put a lot more emphasis and increase the opportunity cost of moving away from lane significantly. The biggest contributor to your quest progress is actually staying in lane as your dedicated laner. So even lane swapping is not really real anymore, because if you have the mid lane quest and your top laner has a top lane quest, you can't trade mid top anymore because you both lose your quests. So it's really bad. That means fundamentally the game is going to be much more focused on laning phase, and the biggest factor affecting the early game is going to be jungle. Strong facilitator junglers are going to have a lot of ability to kind of control the game because there's not going to be outside influences as much with the laners to kind of make a play good or bad in that sense. That's the main thing you need to understand. It considerably changes the flow of the game and makes it less chaotic, especially in the first maybe 10 minutes or so. Everybody gets their quests between the, say, 8 to 13 minute mark, and things start to pick up after that because then the map really unlocks and there's no obligation anymore. On top of this, they moved everything up by 30 seconds. So jungle camps, the first camp spawn is at 55 seconds now, crab spawns at 255, and the game just gets going right away. Something really important to note about this is that they did not move up the other timers. So dragon still spawns at 5 minutes, grubs are still 8 minutes, and baron's 20 minutes. So this means actually that they extended laning phase because now there is more time in lane before the first dragon spawns. Which brings me to my next point, where as of this time, generally speaking, there's a lot more scaling going on in the game. And this is separate from scaling just by time, like 40-minute bangers. Like, people are hitting their 40-minute level strides in less time now because Riot is essentially introducing more gold and power into the game. Other minor things relating to the map that also affect this are Otacon being deleted, a shift in power, and a lot of the objectives. This is a pretty important piece to a lot of macro. A really big change that you might notice now is that the macro flow of the game is quite different. In the last few years, League has been known to kind of just explode the moment someone dies, right? One of your 5 team members dies, automatically Baron. They increased the durability of these epic monsters such that you can't really do that anymore. There's gonna be situations where you're skirmishing in like a certain area, someone gets picked off or something like that, nothing happens actually. Because people that normally would pull Baron, they realize that they actually can't anymore. Because the Baron's actually strong enough that that's not automatically a play anymore. It actually changes what you can go for. Combine this with the fact that they added turret plates to every tower, they added a more emphasis onto split pushing. You can do things like actually trade objectives in cross map and overload into towers because that introduces a ton of gold into the map. One of the key points of the patch is the crystalline growth mechanic as well, which has introduced a built-in demolish mechanic into basically every turret in the game. So trading turret damage and gold is a real play and is a real cross map that you can play for, giving you an option in cases where maybe playing an objective is suboptimal due to your conditions. With the emphasis on top lane dueling, we can see a lot more skirmishing top laners kind of take over the map, and this could be the year of top lane, to be honest with you. So the main objectives are a lot harder to take. They made Dragon tankier, they made Baron tankier. Ironically, they made Grubs and Herald less tanky. As a result, Grubs are actually weaker than they used to be. And grubs are not weaker because they necessarily got nerfed in terms of power. It's just that everything else got so much more power around it. The key aspect of grubs, which is the tower taking, is not really as strong as it used to be. Same with Herald. They made it easier to take, but you're getting less in exchange for it. Combine that with the increase in power in dragons themselves, there's a lot more pressure on being able to trade these sides of the map. And this year, at least as of the time of this recording, the game is currently pretty dragon focused. We'd also talk a little bit about the Phalite mechanic. They introduced this as a communal vision safety aspect to enable things like split pushing and to enable safety for limited periods. If you don't know what they do in general, I recommend just reading the patch notes. From a day-to-day basis, the only thing that you really need to understand is that you can use these as like a mini objective. It grants a temporary vision of that large area for 45 seconds. And let's say being able to go deep into the jungle and going into the enemy's Phalite and being able to blow up their entire vision of jungle, it can be a very powerful thing to do. Another minor change that's worth mentioning is the fact that they actually played around with the minions a little bit more as well. They moved the first cannon wave back to wave 3, so cheater is now available again. So the cheater recall is now available again, and it kind of resyncs like a lot of the old matchups that were reliant on specific wave counts. In addition, they actually added increments such that waves will spawn more frequently as the game progresses. This is to increase the opportunities of pushing, and it kind of reduces the amount of gaps for objectives such that you can actually have more cross-map potential. Because the main factor that prevents you from being able to take a cross-map is usually a wave due to backdoor protection. Minion waves spawn every 25 seconds at 14 minutes and every 20 seconds at 30 minutes and beyond. They generally cut one minion from those waves in order to curb the amount of gold being introduced into the game, especially at later stages. But the whole point of this is so that you have more opportunities to actually see that you have a wave and you can actually go for other objectives on the map, especially turrets. You're not going to run into that situation as often anymore where you feel like you have to play dragon, but your conditions are terrible and you don't see anything on the map and you know you're going to lose that fight. That's not a real scenario anymore. There's a lot of cases where you can genuinely avoid that scenario now, and I think that should be actually something that you should consider in your macro decision. And overall, that's basically the gist of the changes from the vibe of the game, right? Because of course, way more changes in terms of champions and items like they always do, but overall, this is what to expect from the game. The TLDR of it is that the game is very scrappy. There's lots of things you can actually play for on the map and alternatives. You can actually get really creative with what you want to play for. Expect early game to be pretty stable now and reliant of laning and having jungle interference. No blowing up your wave so that you can just push and go to an objective. The nuances of lane are actually back. I would say understanding that with the quest in mind, as well as understanding that macro not going to be what you're used to, and you will be successful in this patch.